I knew Garrison from the university. I was a graduate student and he was an undergraduate student, but I didn't know him during those first years. I met him when I came back and actually joined the faculty in 1966. I was in Scott Hall, the next door to Eddie Hall, where he worked. And he happened to share an office with a woman that I knew, a woman named Connie Goldman. And she was also one of the announcers at KUOM. And she was also a leader among the women's organization that supported the opera company, Minnesota Opera Company, that I sang with. And so I'd gotten to be good friends with her, and since she was in office next door, I frequently visited her. But it's hard to say I met him because he hardly ever said anything. He just sat in the corner and just sort of like he was not there. While Connie and I were laughing a lot and talking, he never said anything. And she would say something to him every once in a while, and he would, But and so I can't really say that I really knew him very well, but I knew who he was, and I heard him on the radio. He called me up and said, I'm thinking of doing this little show on the radio. It's sort of a mixture, I like to think of it as a mixture of the Grand Ole Opry and the Bell Telephone Hour. And I was wondering if you could put your career on the line and come and join us and sort of be the class act. So the rest of us will be doing country western and folk songs, and you come on and sing opera and operetta and serious stuff. Nothing was ever planned. In fact, I never knew when I was going to be on the show. He would call up many times in those first years. He would call up on Friday night. Are you in town this weekend? I said, yeah. He said, could you just drop over and come sing a couple of songs on the show? I said, sure. Of course, we never rehearsed. Nothing was ever timed. He never knew what I was going to sing. He just trusted my judgment that I would come over and sing something that I would be expected to sing. This went on for years. And finally, my wife and I just sort of never made plans for the weekend exactly, never knowing whether I was going to, because it was about probably once a month at least. The early days, the main thing I remember is that we were unrehearsed. It became a very different thing when it got organized, when various producers were a producer was finally hired to actually organize and time things. We were never timed. We never knew how long the show was going to go. And even when it was timed, even in the producer years, we never knew, particularly everyone knew, and it's still true, the last 30 minutes is still a toss-up. We'll rehearse stuff that's supposed to go in there, and we may never do it depending on how long the news from Lake Wobegon really turns out to be. And that has always been true. Even after 40 years, there are some things that haven't changed. There are many things that have, but there are other things that haven't. And part of it is that sort of improvisatory feeling. I've had friends, for instance, who have been performers who have been invited to be on the show. And they said, where's the script for the talk? I said, when you call to the microphone, not one of us ever knows what he's going to say or what he's going to ask. That's improv time. That is not scripted. Even though the other scripts are scripted, that isn't. So you have no idea what he's going to ask you. And it may be something from utter left field. But just roll with it. There have been people who've been on the show once, simply because by mutual, I think, understanding between Garrison and them, they cannot take not knowing what's going on. And that's an important part of who he is and what he does in the show. And I think it's an important part of what makes the show so popular, because it's being made up as you listen. The name recognition, actually, I was always astonished by. My wife was at a national convention in North Carolina, I think, or someplace, and she had Phyllis Sutton on her. And they said, "You're from Minnesota?" I said, "Sutton," she said. And they asked if she was related to me. It was a name recognition that both of us were quite astonished at. The popularity of this show, and particularly in parts of the country where we didn't think it would be so popular. In New York City, people were listening in New York City even. Even after 40 years, our relationship is such that he can call me and he knows that I will do whatever, because we have this very long friendship that goes back, that's based on a kind of mutual understanding that we'll do whatever the other one wants to do. Some things change in the world, but it seems that our relationship, our very casual friendship relationship that goes back 40 plus years, just doesn't change, and I find great comfort in that. So.